Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the business value our system is going to be able to deliver to Habitat. The first big thing here is that Habitat being a nonprofit means that the more financial resources not spent on a system, the more nonprofit work that can be done in the community. Our system being based on the Salesforce platform will mean better use of resources, meaning that Habitat can do away with the recurring costs of DonorView. A second piece of this business value is that our system is going to be able to streamline processes. So this means that resources can be saved and put to better use. A third piece of this is going to be that our system is going to facilitate easier communication and understanding of the constituents of Habitat. So this means that Habitat is going to have better engagement with donors, volunteers, the people that help Habitat do the work that they do. In order to elicit requirements, our team had the chance to perform an in-class interview with Paul Farr. We also gained extra requirements through supplemental documents provided throughout the semester. We didn't have any issues getting necessary information or understanding requirements besides a few clarifications made by our professor. We were not, however, able to get input from all of the various stakeholder groups due to time and location restrictions. In order to demonstrate how our system will impact its users, our team developed two different user personas, one of a real user, Paul Farr, and one of a fictional user named Mary Jones. We were able to develop this persona for Paul Farr through our interview with him, and our team came up with this list of goals and frustrations. Some of the goals that we put for Paul were making the best use of Habitat's resources and efficient CRM processing and management. Our system will help Paul reach his goals in making the best use of Habitat's resources by being a system created on the cost-effective Salesforce platform. This means that we can do away with the old DonorView system and its recurring costs. The second persona that we came up with is Mary Jones. She is an executive committee board member at the Athens Area Habitat for Humanity. Some of her goals are to be as connected as possible with the constituents and have access to secure, up-to-date, and relevant information whenever necessary. Our system is going to help Mary reach her goals to keep her connected to the members of Habitat by maintaining up-to-date, reliable information on constituents and their engagement with Habitat.
Thank you, Emily. Going into system functionality, the business need for the project was a more streamlined and accessible system that allows for easier access and data control. This is important as it gives a more holistic view of their donor base. We included some screenshots of the system in work. This is viewing current constituents in the database. We have creating a new constituent within the database, selecting fields to display in the constituent table, viewing the current organizations that are in the database, and finally, we have creating constituent reports. Some of the non-functional requirements for the project were to have a user interface that is accessible and easy to navigate, as well as being a high-performing system when importing data and sorting data. Security was also an important requirement, and trusting data manipulation to system administrators helped achieve that. Finally, we wanted to ensure that users could easily understand the layout of the database and add objects without a need to code, and Salesforce's diagram modeling helps to do this. Some of the sprints that we would like to complete in the future are to finalize reporting abilities and also the address table.
Thank you, Dan. During our analysis and design process, our team relied upon information given in the project proposal and the interview with Paul Farr to determine the requirements for our Salesforce system. We began our modeling process by creating a use case diagram which displayed all of our use cases. The use case diagram was an effective technique in communicating our goals for the system and user interactions, as well as defining and organizing functional requirements in the system. Our team also created a domain class diagram to provide an overview of the target system by describing the objects and classes inside the system and the relationships between them. Both of the domain class diagrams and the use case diagrams helped us model use case requirements. The updating constituent information process diagram is an example of how we modeled use case requirements. The domain class diagram was particularly helpful during the implementation process to help us ensure that the system captures the attributes of each class. And now I'll pass it off to Spencer to give a system demonstration.
Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well this morning. Once again, this is Spencer Sutton here to give a final demo of our team's constituent management application that we've built here in Salesforce for the Athens, Georgia chapter of Habitat for Humanity. So to kind of dive into our schema that we've built using master detail relationships between the four key objects that we built: constituent, organization, address, and household account. All the gaps between these bridged using these custom affiliation objects that we made, and then implemented different master detail relationships among and between all of these objects to create the relationships necessary to produce the correct reports, to have the proper overlapping attributes between these objects, things of that nature, so that this system can be properly maintained and utilized. This was not our first iteration. Obviously, we have a little graveyard to the right here of some of the failed attempts that we had, and using like, for example, in this first schema that we built, we used lookup relationships as opposed to master detail. In this one, we used the automatically the affiliation object that was not customized, that was pre-installed with the Salesforce Schema Builder. However, that did not allow us to have the proper amount and pattern of master detail relationships that we needed to make it work in the way that we wanted. So this is the schema that we stuck with. Now, we did look into potentially creating the system via the Nonprofit Success Pack application that exists through Salesforce already. However, given the time constraints, we thought it better to continue with the custom schema route that we had already started. And while the schema is relatively simplified, it does work. And I'll show you here. We have just an example of some of the constituents, constituent data that we have loaded into this constituent table. We have data for all of the objects, and it might take some time, so I won't show you all of them. But we've got data for doesn't want to seem to come up. We also have data in there for affiliations, household accounts, things of this nature. Here, I'll show you the reports here. So for the householding reports, this kind of goes through all the affiliations that have been created between the household and the constituent, and multiple constituents can belong to a household, just given the nature of how householding is supposed to work in the context of Habitat for Humanity. And you'll see here some of these don't have a legitimate household account name because it's dummy data. While there is no information in this space, this is a demonstration of the fact that the system does work. And you can see here in these instances where we do have account households names, we have constituents associated with a concrete household through this affiliation. So for example, affiliation 10 creates the affiliation that creates this constituents belonging to this household, which happens to be this household right here, Fran Billingsley, Richard Billingsley. And we can also run a constituent report, which brings up all the necessary constituent information that one might need, say first name, last name, whether or not this constituent is deceased, gender, email, contact info, etc. And these reports can be further customized to provide any additional information that may be needed in the future, and new custom reports can be created fairly easily as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I feel the need to mention again, given the time constraints we face due to unprecedented circumstances, consider this system a very abbreviated version of what would be deployed after, say, 5 sprints as opposed to 3. That being said, I hope you enjoyed our demonstration, and thank you, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. So as a team, we highlighted all the things we're proud of. And in summary, we're really proud with how well we worked with each other while learning a new system and a Scrum methodology. This team showed a lot of grit, and we were very adaptable to changing needs. And Some of the big takeaways from this project. So first of all, we learned how to work with Scrum and the fundamentals behind this process. We did a really great job understanding like the different roles and having flexibility within our schedules to meet up and discuss project guidelines. Two, we also learned that developing a system can be very complex, and it's important to have a detailed analysis of the system as it makes the design phase easier to manage. And lastly, client work can be difficult if there is confusion as to what the vision should be. And some things that really worked effectively was, one, attendance and participation. There was always a strong attendance, and everyone used that time to clear any confusion and ask really important questions. Two is leadership. So everyone really took initiative in their roles and delivered quality work. Three, contribution. So the work was fairly split up and there were no problems with the team. And some opportunities that could have been improved could be utilizing the professor and client if we had any issues. We didn't really have a lot of time to email, but I think in the future that could be something we can incorporate to any other projects we end up working on. And lastly, having everyone involved on the Salesforce development side so that, if one person won't be able to work on it, then somebody else can kind of step in and they have understanding of what needs to be done. But yeah, so thank you for listening to our presentation. And are there any questions?